I'm sure many of us do that thing wherein we are constantly talking about all of the things that we keep meaning to get to, that we're gonna get around to eventually. The things that we know are good for us, and while we haven't gotten around to it yet, we've been planning to for a really long time, so we're sure we're gonna get to it soon. And while we have good intentions, sometimes our words don't actually lead to action, and we never actually get around to those things that we keep planning to do. I'd like to think that I don't do this that often, but I'm sure I do it a lot with books at the very least. You can see proof of this in the comment section of some of your videos. I'm sure those videos where you're talking about all of these interesting books, a lot of which I've been meaning to get to for a while now, and I tell you that I've been meaning to get to them for a while now, and a lot of those I've never actually gotten to. Of course, you can also see proof of it in my videos, where I keep telling you about all of my good intentions to read more diversely and to read more books outside of my comfort zone. And while I do end up reading more diversely and out of my comfort zone sometimes, obviously, I can't get around to all of the books and all of the types of books I am so eagerly talking about reading here on this channel. It's often hard to keep up with and not be intimidated by all of my good intentions, especially because there's just so many books that I want to read. But this year, I am going to follow through with at least some of those. I'll get to it eventually. So today we'll be sharing with you 10 of the types of books that I will not just be planning to get to this 2018, but that I will surely get around to reading this 2018. A lot of these categories are ones that I would ideally want to read more than one book from this year. However, all I'm asking of myself is just one book, just that first step, because it's way less intimidating and a lot more feasible and a lot more flexible depending on how my priorities change this year. With that out of the way, here are the 10 goals, categories, whatever, that I will get to this year for sure. 1 is to read a book in Tagalog. I am a Filipino, but one who is admittedly way more comfortable speaking in and reading in English. And while I'm proud that I've been able to read a lot more local literature in the last couple of years than I was able to before, and while I will continue to prioritize that, all of that local literature that I've read has been in English. None of it has been in my actual native language. It's just that I'm lucky to be technically bilingual, to have literature in 2 different languages available to me, and so I should take advantage of that. Number 2, read an Own Voices LGBT plus book, and connected to that is number 3, read an Own Voices mental illness book. Over the last couple of years, I've been putting a lot more effort into reading more diversely and into reading more Own Voices literature especially. However, most of that diversity has come in the form of reading from different races and different cultures. Ironically, I haven't been very diverse in my exploration of diversity in fiction and in literature in general. Diversity does come in many forms, and so I would like to explore some of the other ones. Number 4 is kind of similar, but it's also a bit more specific. It's to read an Own Voices book by an African author that is not Nigerian. Again, it's oddly specific. It's just that I noticed that all of the books that I have read and that I'm planning to read by African authors are by Nigerian American authors. It's like, there are other parts of Africa, Clarice. Why aren't you reading from them? That being said, I actually have no idea where to start with this. So if any of you have any suggestions for books that I can read that are in this category, please share them with me in the comment section. It would really help. Number 5, finish a series that I started before this year. Honestly, I've been leaning more towards standalones, with most of the only exceptions being in high fantasy and in comics. But the series that I have been starting, I don't actually seem to end up finishing, even when there are a lot of series that I am excited to continue and finish. Number 6, reread a book that I am on the fence about giving away. I mentioned this a lot, but I have this sort of ongoing book goal to make sure that I end up with a bookshelf only of books that I love. That involves being both picky about the books that I put into my collection, as well as less hesitant about giving away books that already are in my collection. But there are some books that I am hesitant to give away just because I'm not sure how I feel about them anymore. Some books that I either really liked before, but I'm not sure, given how my reading tastes have changed, whether I would like now. And some books that I was kind of okay about before, but I feel like would be better on the reread. So I will reread, or at least attempt to reread, one of those books this year, so I can finally make a decision about them. 7. Finish a book that I've been currently reading for a long time. I've never really been the type to leave a lot of books on my currently reading on Goodreads for very long, especially if I'm not actually currently reading it, until last year, when my reading became very, very erratic, and now there are quite a few books there. In addition to the books that are on my currently reading shelf on Goodreads right now, there are also a couple of other books that I know I've been in the middle of for a while that just aren't there because I never added them there. So the point is for me to actually finish one of those books finally this year. Number 8. Read a canon Star Wars novel. The rationale behind this is kind of simple. I love Star Wars. I love books. There are loads of Star Wars books that I hear are fantastic. This needs to happen. 9. Read another Guy Gavriel Kay novel. I think it was in 2016 that I read 2 books of Guy Gavriel Kay's, and I really thoroughly enjoyed both of them. And whenever someone mentions one of their books in a video, I talk about how I'm really looking forward to reading more of his books, and then I never got around to reading any more of his books. Based on the books of his I've read so far, he could potentially become one of my favorite authors. So I don't really know what's taking me so long to read more of his books. And number 10, read a NEAL Stephenson novel. I haven't actually read any of his books yet. At the same time, all of his books sound so fascinating and sound exactly like the sorts of books that I normally love. He's also a programmer, and I know topics related to that field do appear in his books a lot. And as a software programmer myself, that just makes me want to read his books even more. So those are the 10 types of books that I will get around to reading this year. So what are the books or the types of books that you've been meaning to get to for a long time? And do you find yourself actually reading those books? Or like me, do you spend more time fantasizing about getting to them than actually getting to them? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!